Hello and welcome to Nail Candor. So today we're going to do a little bit of nail stamping. I came across a stamping plate on Amazon the other day and it was called Halloween Nail Stamping Plates, Horror Movie Characters, Nail Art Stamp Plates, Halloween Scary Face, Nail Art Stamping Template, Holiday Manicure Decoration Supplies, 1 pieces. It was $6.99. But I thought it was kind of amazing because, quite frankly, I absolutely love horror movies. So I've been doing my nails for a while, but I wouldn't say that I'm any kind of a professional. I'm more of like a at-home DIYer. Starting out, we are going to put down 1 coat of Peely Base from Holo Taco. I really like that Peely Base coat because unlike some of the other ones that I've tried, it does not just randomly pop off. And then we're going to go in with Holo Taco's 1 coat black, and we're going to paint the thumb and the pinky finger. Absolutely love that formula. So I've never really watched myself on film painting my fingernails, and I feel like if you wanted to get better at doing your fingernails, one way would be to watch yourself paint them on film, because I can legitimately see every single little tiny mistake and flaw in my nails. So yeah, then we're going to do our pointer finger in Not Milky White, again by Holo Taco. Also love that formula, but here it looks like it was having some problems. It's really quite thick and it just looks like I cut a little bit of the Peely Base underneath it. So then we're going to go in with High Def, and that is also from Holo Taco, and it was from their retro collection. Absolutely loved the retro collection. It's more of a jelly formula, so it's always going to be a little bit transparent unless we do multiple coats of it. But that color is kind of a weird one because it's kind of like a highlighter color. It's somewhere between yellow and green. And then we're going to go in with Holo Taco's Box Office Bomb, which is also from the retro collection and is kind of a fluorescent orange color. Both of these have some kind of like hollow glitters in them. I don't believe nail art is anything like fashion where you can't mix your patterns. I think it transcends rules. Yes, I am mixing jelly hollows with solids. In 3 coats, it does look more solid. Because I've been painting my nails since approximately the age of 3, that makes me a professional. Do not attempt to do this at home. Stay seated. Do not move your hand at all for approximately 20 minutes. I took a break to make and eat a sandwich while my nails dry. My sandwich is also known as deconstructed avocado toast. We have some toast with avocado, with a fried egg, with some chili garlic oil on top. It's delicious. My doctor told me that my good cholesterol was low and that I needed to eat more avocados. I don't quite think that my toast is what she meant. Next, I'm going to go in with Gelish Top It Off gel top coat so that when I make a mistake, I can just wipe it off. It's too bad that we can't just wipe off all of life's mistakes. We need a top coat for life. This isn't foreshadowing at all. My UV lamp is proof that time travel exists. I'm mad my future me didn't warn my current me about the design I was choosing. Next, we're going to go in with OPI Infinite Shine Primer, and that is just a totally normal base coat. And so the reason why is because the base coats typically have like kind of a stickiness after you apply them. The top of it will be a little bit sticky, and that really helps to pull the stamp off of the stamper. I clearly need to work on my on-camera polishing technique. It would appear as though I missed the left edges of every single one of my nails. So let's go in and look at the plate. So if we look at the plate, we can see there's cool characters on here. We've got Freddy Krueger, we've got Jason, we've got Pennywise, we've got Chucky, we have Mike Myers, we have a single weird Dracula, we have 1 single weird Beetlejuice, and then we have Billy the puppet. And that would be the puppet's name from Saw, which I just learned, and I think that is absolutely hilarious. So the very first one that we're going to do is Ghostface, and that is probably my favorite on the plate. And Ghostface is from the Scream franchise. Now, the very first Scream movie came out in 1996, a whopping 28 years ago. You can see that this picked up really, really nicely from the plate. And so this is the part where you kind of have to hold your breath. I'm also at a very strange angle here for filming. I would not normally stamp in this direction. So if it's a little off center, apologies. But you can see it also went down really nice. And Ghostface looks fabulous on white. The polish that I'm using for stamping is also Holo Taco's One Coat Black. And I think that it lends itself really, really well to stamping. The next one we're going to do is Freddy Krueger, and Freddy Krueger is from A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is also a franchise. The first movie came out in 1984, 40 years ago. Now, oddly, the stamping plate actually has two Freddy Kruegers on it, and one is just a little bit bigger than the other, and they are almost identical. So that is a little weird. But you can see it picked up really well off of the plate, and you can see that this one has gone down really well as well. So sometimes the only thing that bothers me a little bit about this one is that if that was just on my nail and it didn't have Ghostface right next to it, would we actually know that that's Freddy Krueger? I'm not so sure. Like, not unless you were to like kind of paint him with, maybe the iconic, disgusting, like, I don't even know. It's some kind of weird, like, reddish or orangish and brownish, greenish striped sweater. I feel like maybe it's a little bit too detailed for nail stamping. Next, we're going to do Pennywise. Pennywise is a character from the Stephen King novel It, which was published in 1986, 38 years ago. You can see that this one also went up really well and also went down really well. There's multiple Pennywise stamps on this plate, and all of them are really amazing. The Pennywise stamps on the plate are not from Tim Curry's movie adaptation of It from 1990. They're actually from the Bill Skarsgård adaptation of It from 2017. Now we're going to do Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees is from the Friday the 13th franchise, which the first movie came out in 1980, 44 years ago. This is also where things start to go terribly wrong, as they're wont to do anytime you do nail stamping. And obviously I messed up there. That didn't pick up correctly. What's really interesting about horror movies, though, is that they kind of transcend generations at this point. So if I had had children, which I didn't, but if I had, I could probably go watch Scream with my daughter or my son. That's crazy. No other movie genre is quite like that, except for maybe sci-fi fantasy. The longevity of horror franchises is just absolutely crazy. So you can see I'm doing it again here. And if you can notice that I picked up the scraper in my left hand so that I can do this as quickly as possible. And you can see here, I'm doing it very quickly. I'm not taking multiple swipes or anything. I would say that my technique here is absolutely perfect. Not to brag, but it's not my first time. And we try to go down with it. It looks like I probably picked it up okay. And it looks like shit. So this is why I use the gel polish layer, is because now I can just wipe this off and I don't have to completely repolish this nail or have any weird issues with it. So I have to come back in with the base coat, which is all I really have to do, and let that dry. Luckily, base coats dry very, very quickly. So now I just have to bide my time waiting for that base coat to dry. So I basically just get the stamping all completely ready to go. It picked up perfectly here, but I do need to clean off because I think I picked up the other design too. I need to clean that off a little bit. And you can see on the stamper, perfect. It picked up absolutely perfectly this time. And so I think it's dry. And you know what I did wrong here? I didn't check. And so I go down with it. And was it dry? No, it was not dry. It was all messed up. And so now I have to do it again. I've done this so many times. And this is what happens with nail stamping in the real world. Now, I could edit all of this out, but like, what's the fun in that? So here's a trick. Sometimes with your stamping plates, if the etching is not quite deep enough, you will have issues if you try to use a polish that is too thick. So if you thin the polish down, here you could see me mixing it with a little bit of acetone. You could mix it with thinner, whatever. What happens is that it makes it very easy then for it to actually get into those little tiny fine lines. Now, Not Milky White was designed to be a very thick polish. It was designed to get coverage in a single coat. And in this particular instance, I think it was just too thick for this specific design that I was trying to pick up. And I could have switched the design and picked a different one, but it's a pride thing at this point. And so now you can see me going down again here. And oh my gosh, there is another horrible mistake. That base coat was not even close to being dry. I'm not sure if that was the 5th or the 6th time that I tried this. I think at this point it might be like 2 hours later. And this might be why we pay professionals $60 to stamp one design. And once again, down with the base coat. And you can see just how much the gel top coat is saving my ass here. So here we go again, down with the base coat. And so this time I decided to maybe take a small break from that nail and move on to my pinky nail and a different design so that I can have a success and feel a little better about myself. You know, for some reason on this stamping plate, 10 of the designs, at least 10 of the designs, are of Jason Voorhees. And I think that's really interesting because Friday the 13th was really kind of my least favorite of the horror movie franchises. I don't think that I've even really seen them all. I've definitely seen the first one and I believe the second one and some of the newer ones, but I think that's about it. You can see here I'm thinning this down again just because I know that the design that I'm about to pick up has a little bit more detail, a little bit finer lines. And so what we're doing next is Billy the puppet from the Saw franchise. Now, the Saw franchise is actually relatively newer. The first one came out in 2004, so 20 years ago. And I actually think the Saw franchise was really interesting. Like, the very first movie was kind of a reawakening of the horror genre. I think it was just a really, really fabulous movie. I think the plot was really interesting. And I think the end, the surprise end, was also absolutely fantastic. I do feel like you need a little bit of a strong stomach to kind of watch those movies. But the first one, having Carrie Elwes in it, was just absolutely fantastic. And I think that Carrie Elwes was definitely my crush growing up. And I think a lot of little girls' crushes growing up. And, you know, that kind of stays with you. So every time I see Carrie Elwes, I'm like, aw, nostalgia. Thanks to the 1987 movie, The Princess Bride, and we're just going to ignore that weird little mustache. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. My mind almost melted when I realized that Gideon from Criminal Minds was actually Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, played by Mandy Patinkin. All right, so I just need to do a little bit of cleanup here while I wait for my base coats to completely dry. Every time I see this, like the edges, the sides of my nails, like I just completely missed polishing them, and it's driving me bananas seeing this. This crazy dot here, this little black dot has been driving me crazy this whole entire time. So I'm about to feel so much better. We'll just ignore the rippling in the nail polish. All right, so now they're all clean. And that right there, did you see that? That little touch test? That is what you should do every time before you go in to stamp it, to make sure that base coat is actually dry enough to stamp on. That was the mistake that I made twice, not doing the touch test. So this guy, like the top of the stamp didn't go down all that well. So I'm just going to go in with a brush and clean up the comb over that I gave him so that he looks a little more presentable. I could wipe it off and redo it, but I don't really think that there's that much reason to here. Although if you do redo it, it will be cleaner because no matter what, doing this is going to always leave like a little tiny bit of a color change where I'm doing this. It's really hard to completely and totally clean it off, especially when it's white on black. But white on black is actually kind of my favorite. So I think when it comes to stamping, I have a very strong preference for white stamping on black polish or blank stamping on white polish. This is starting to feel an awful lot like Freddy versus Jason. And I do want to say that Freddy lost that fight, although I kind of think that Freddy was robbed. Let's try this again. Thinning out the polish again with some acetone, making sure that it's nice and thin. I only want to do this one more time, and you guys are not going to believe what is going to happen to me here. But it's okay because I pushed through. I pushed through this. So you can see it came up perfectly. Well, I mean, I guess you kind of can't really see, but it came up pretty perfectly. So I just need to clean off all of the junk on the edges. You can see I'm so frustrated right here. I'm basically like, please let this work this time. Just want to make sure that it's perfect so that I don't get nail stamping rage. And here we go. Oh my gosh, it's like hold your breath kind of moment. You can see that I'm scared to do it. I'm like, I don't know, is it gonna work? So here we go. And I go down and blam, look. The bunch of the design is left on the stamper, but you know what? I go back in and I'm like, maybe I can line this up. If you've ever tried to line up stamping, it is extremely difficult for some reason. It's just because I think the jelly part of the stamper, kind of moves and distorts when you stamp. So it's very hard to get that lined up exactly perfectly unless you stamp in the exact same way every time. But I did manage to get this to look okay. I mean, his shoulder only looks kind of dislocated. And even when I see this design on my nail, I do not really like it. Like I feel like it was just way overly detailed of a stamp. It's really hard to make out what was going on. So the last thing that I do with stamping is I come back in with a gel top coat. It's the same top coat, the gelish top it off. And the reason why I do this with a gel top coat instead of a regular top coat is because it does not actually streak the polish. So if, like me, you like the really high contrasting colors, if you try to use a regular top coat, it is going to be very difficult, and it almost always leaves your designs streaky because it kind of melts the stamp and it just drags it all over your nail. But you can see that I am running over this stamp multiple times with this gel top coat, and it's not streaking at all. There are some top coats that are specifically made for stamping that definitely reduce the streaking, but I have found that even those, they kind of streak. And to be honest, when the gel polish goes over the stamping, it really smooths it out in a really, really nice way. It tends to hide a lot of the obvious imperfections in my stamping technique. And because the gel polish is over the top of a regular polish, it's not quite as hard to get off. I also have on, of course, that peely base coat, which means I can just pop these off quite easily. I will say, though, that because it wasn't like your gel polishes weren't really designed to be on top of those peely base coats, this particular peely base coat, it does not really last quite as long. Like, you'll, at least for me, and FYI, I have on acrylic nails right now, and this can definitely play a factor in this. But on acrylic nails, with the peely base coat, with the Holo Taco peely base coat, and then all of the layers of polish for this design, and then the gel polish on top of all of that, I do notice within a day or two that they do start to kind of come up a little bit like the peely base coat. And that's just because of the thickness of the polish that's on it. On my right hand, I have the peely base coat with just the Holo Taco, like standard sort of polish on top of that, and just a top coat on that. And that has been on there for, I want to say, 3 or 4 days now. I think 4 days now. And it has not come up at all. It hasn't even chipped. Nothing. So I feel like the peely base coat works really, really well if you're not using like very thick stuff on it. Like, I really don't want this to be on my nails for very long. And for some people, that might be the case. You may only want to have the stamping design for a very short period of time. And I would say that you're going to get away with the peely base coat if you only want it for like a day or two, if you're actually using your gel polishes. So here you can see how this turned out. I do really like it. Like I said, I do feel like I made a lot of mistakes. I feel like if you only had some of these characters, it would be very difficult to tell what it is or what's going on. But I feel like with Ghostface and with Pennywise and Billy the puppet, you know, it's a little bit easier. I feel like if it was just Freddy alone, it probably wouldn't have worked out all that well. So I did another set just as kind of honorable mentions of what was on the stamping plate. And so here we can see that I did another Pennywise. There's Chucky. There is Beetlejuice. And there's Mike Myers. And then on my thumb, there was just like a little Pennywise face with some of the lettering. And so I feel like this looks really nice and everything, but you can also kind of see what I mean about some of the like fine details that happen to be in this stamping plate. Like if I just had Mike Myers, I feel like it would be kind of hard to even really tell what that is. The same thing with if I just had Beetlejuice. And as a matter of fact, when I looked at the plate initially, it took me a while to figure out that that was Beetlejuice. And then the Chucky ones are really highly detailed. I feel like it's a little bit hard to make out things in his face. And then the last Pennywise stamp, I think, was actually the nicer stamp and the one that I initially meant to do because it had, I think, like more area and less of the fine line things. But, you know, overall, I would give that stamping plate a pretty good rating if you really like scary movie kind of things, like if this is kind of your thing. I don't necessarily think that this stamping plate is only for Halloween. I think that there are plenty of people out there who are just straight up horror movie fans that would wear these stamps totally outside of Halloween. So if you're one of those people and you're looking for this plate, I do recommend, I will put a link in the description of where you can get this plate. The whole time that I've been doing my nails, I've been wondering, like, if all of these horror movie villains got into a fight, like, let's say that they were put in something like Super Mario Smash Bros. Or something, it would be like horror franchise Smash Villains. Who would win? Thanks. Bye.